Okay. So now
Welcome all. Welcome to episode 9 of Creative Risk, where we talk about art entrepreneurialism, and everything in between. This is the Ginger Crisp. You want one?
No, I'm good.
Michael doesn't like Ginger Crisps either.
Yeah, ginger crisp. That's like some I feel like I'm like Miss Doubtfire. It's like it's like very like a biscuit. I'm not into that. It's like if I want like a treat, like it's gotta be thick. It's gotta have like substance.
I like thick treats too.
Crisp. No.
Oh, is that a homosexual joke? Are you talking about penises?
Gay. Okay.
I like how musical theater. Musical theater is kind of gay.
Did you say the words of musical theater is kind of gay?
Well, it's not only.
What do you mean? It's kind of. Yeah, musical theater. Believe it or not, there's quite a large representation of LGBTQ plus.
I wonder what that is about, because you can't just say, oh, it's about the music and the dance. You can't say that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, why are gays attracted to that? Well, you would know better than me. Why do you think? What do you think draws the gays?
Well, okay, interesting. Because I would argue, how like gays, and we really talk about. I just want to say for the expansive queer culture today, that you and I really stick to the basics when it comes to to the
I like my meat and potato queers.
Well, here's that's where we're at. That's where we're at in 2023. Meat and potato queers.
Yeah, give me just some basic meat and potato queers.
But I think the reason that I was going to turn the music on. That's a ridiculous idea. I think the reason that gay people like or are so attracted to musical theater, both as audience and as performers, is the same reason that like gays love like powerful, bold women like Barbara and Lady Gaga. It's like there's like a theatricality, an over-the-topness that sort of matches our inner life. You know what I'm saying?
Well, okay. Well, let's talk. Well, let's really hash this out, because the thing is, it's like when we said like the thing about James Corden in the prom and like like he was missing the whole. Like you got to be gays have to be are held a little bit because they have to be because of the horrific culture we're in,
holding us back.
Oh yeah, exactly. But like so there's always a part that's a little, even like the most like messy gays. There's something
always a little held. Yes.
So like that makes sense, and it's like, so for like musical theater, are you seeing, like, is it like, oh, these are people who are allowed to be big, bold, it's like fully expressive, and it's like I want to be able to have that because I don't feel like I'm able to have that. Is that what it is? It's like.
Yeah. Oh no.
Because we have to get rid of the idea also of like, let's pretend we're going back like 100 years, because obviously when you come up gay now and you see gay people in musical theater, you're drawn to it more probably.
Right. It's changed.
But like what's drawn, like what drew the people back in the day?
Yeah. No. I okay. Well, I'll also just say you'd have to agree that you will probably identify as an outsider. I'll get to my point about why in a second. Because, well, what the theater? The theater is a weird world, and what are most people's entry points, even for folks who are primarily
musical theater,
doing film and TV? No, just theater.
Well, I think musical theater especially.
Sure, but I'm going back to like middle school, high school days when we first dip our toes in. It's usually because we didn't really flow with the rest of the crowd, so to speak. And I'm saying this because gays, I would argue, obviously, certainly as well. And then within that, so there's already the weird world of just the performing arts. And then there's this form where I really get to let it all out. I get to sing, I get to dance, I get to wear the costumes, I get to do it all. Actually, this is reminding me. So many, many, many years ago, I mean, probably, this was probably nearly 15 years ago now, Brian Suto, our buddy Brian, who we'll have on the podcast at some point.
As we keep saying.
I like put it in the calendar. Anyway, Brian, Danny Yorgis, we went to a New Year's Eve party, a very odd New Year's Eve party that this really rich alum of the School of the Arts was throwing. We were invited. It was somewhere like in the Outer Banks, I think. I can't really remember. But I remember going, and a lot of wealthy people there, including, I can't say who it is now. This person's an ambassador some big up ambassador in the United States who I hooked up with.
Like an international ambassador to like a country.
Yes.
Okay.
He went to Harvard. And I remember he's Republican. He was like a gay Republican.
Never say that. Never say that. Those are bad people. Okay, so.
Oh, I got dizzy. No. Why is the dizziness back? It's the ginger crisp.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So this
okay, gay Republican
but here's why
ambassador
this is a side
to
note.
Ukraine.
But we hooked up, and I'll never forget. In the middle of us hooking up on like this weird New Year's Eve thing, he pulled back and he was like, "Oh, your type is so new to me." Literally, because he was very like upper crust, and I just remember being like,
and you were like a
fuck?
trashy like.
Well, not really. I wasn't. But again,
You're like trailer trash like artist.
This is that's exactly it. It's that he was used to like the Harvard elite gays, whatever that is, and here I am, just this like weird artsy Brian, Danny, and I. But actually, what you were making me think about was it was funny because there was one other gay. It was like me. Oh, I know he said his name. This Republican gay, and this other like over the top fat gay.
Is this Republican gay out or is he?
Yes, no, he is out because I saw.
So look up gay Republican ambassador on Google, and that's who it is.
There'll be millions. No, but I remember that, like, it was the next morning after New Year's Eve. We were all like drunk, and there was this one fat gay. It was like, I just say fat because like he was just like over the top. He like kind of reminded me of like Philip Seymour Hoffman. And what's that movie where he plays the gay?
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
No, not Magnolia.
No, come on. Not
I don't know.
Capote,
Fucking Punch Drunk. No. Yeah, where he dresses up.
I don't remember, but there was one. Anyway, he kind of reminded me of him, and he kept trying to hook up with me all night, and I was like, "What are you doing? Get away from me!"
Yeah,
but I'll never forget the next
positivity. Yeah, no,
no.
Yeah,
it just was too much. Anyway, the next morning after New Year's Eve,
too much body. That's great.
We're like you and me, spelty and speltier.
Exactly. Listen, I'm fat
phobic.
phobic.
Let me get a ginger crisp.
I'm fat phobic. That's why I can't stand it right now. Anyway, what were you saying?
No, but I just remember Brian and Danny and I were sitting there, and we were all. It was the morning after, and I just remember him like. All of a sudden, it was like silent, and there was a table of like goodies, and he. Literally prances across the room and he's like, "I love pastries." He goes and picks up several of them. And I don't know why us talking about that just reminded me of that, but Brian and Danny and I nearly shit ourselves laughing so hard in that moment because we were the outsiders of this like weird, rich.
It was like a mansion, like an estate.
It was like a nice, fancy beach house.
Oh, that's nice.
It was like at the beach. I remember that.
That's really nice. I've never had a. I remember my best
11/11 Make a Wish.
My best New Year's party.
I'm texting Michael too.
Was whatchamacallit was it was the summer going into my sophomore year of no, not the summer. It was fucking New Year's. I was home. It must have been going into my sophomore year of college. And me and my buddy Mike Topalis, who I've mentioned before. We used to watch like crazy shit, and so we were obsessed with the OC. Have you ever watched the OC?
You've talked about this. This is with Peter Gallagher,
God, bro.
right?
Yes, the OC's fucking amazing. It's genius. It's like it's so fucking good. But there was the New Year's Eve episode. Just not listening to anything I'm saying.
No, the New Year's Eve episode.
The New Year's Eve episode is fucking amazing. It's just like watch it. Like that's what I'm gonna do this New Year's. I'll be alone in my apartment. And I'll watch the New Year's Eve episode of the OC. It's incredible. Like, it's like Ryan like runs up the stairs in slow motion because he has to kiss what's her face, Marissa. Like it's incredible. But we dropped acid, and we smoked a blunt, and then we watched this New Year's Eve episode, and like I remember I was like, I've never been so like I was like, what the fuck? We were like.
Well, now you're gonna watch it and be like, oh, this is a piece of shit.
I mean, it is a piece of shit, but that's kind of the point. But like that was a phenomenal New Year's Eve OC episode. New Year's Eve episode.
Well, maybe I'll watch that because I hate New Year's Eve. I really don't like.
I love New Year's Eve.
I have always disliked this holiday. It's very depressing to me.
Well, waiting tables, fucking. You want to talk about what's depressing? When I was waiting, I worked every New Year's Eve, and waiting tables New Year's Eve, that fucking blows.
You can probably make a lot of money.
Okay.
No. I know New Year's Eve gives me a lot of anxiety. I also, well, you know this. It's funny, as I get older, the introvert in me, it's getting bad. I like to keep my circle smaller and smaller and smaller. It's very difficult for me to give as much energy, and the idea of bouncing from New Year's Eve party to New Year's Eve party, it's just like, what? I don't want to do that. Michael and I, one time, we did yoga and meditated into the new year against the backdrop of a 4-piece string quartet. Literally, that was really nice. Now that was gay.
Yeah.
Listen, this is actually an appropriate top of show.
We should tell comfort food performances we're saving for the end.
Oh yeah, we're saving comfort
for the loyal listeners.
Yeah, they're holding on to their seats.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're gonna
Can't wait for us to talk about like Randy Quaid, our new Republican actor friend.
We're gonna save comfort food performance at the end. Okay, let's get into it.
But the reason why this is a good top of show is because topically, which we should have told y'all, we're this episode is all about an actor's end of year review. More specifically, all around goal setting. And of course, it's that time, and the reason we're doing that is because it's that time of year when most people, in fact, probably more people than actors set goals.
May old acquaintance be forgot.
I don't know these lyrics.
And never brought to mind.
Yes. Keep going.
May old acquaintance be forgot, and rolling Auld Lang Syne.
You should hear Mike. His audition song is "I Love Betsy." What's that song?
Yeah, it's I love Betsy. Yeah. Anyway,
so we're talking about an actor's end of year review, specifically around goal setting. And how this is the time to do a bit of a retrospective and sort of more importantly clarify, reset, or adapt goals.
Yes.
Right? But before we sort of get into sort of like the end of year review, let's just talk about goal setting in a general sense. Because I remember, I can't remember if it was you or someone else said this to me. Someone said something like once, like, why would an actor set a goal? Isn't the goal just to work and to go with the flow of what the industry essentially hands you?
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
I mean, this is because I do think that, and I think for actors in particular, it is actually difficult to set goals for many, many reasons.
Well, we've worked with a lot of actors. Do you think actors have goals? Like I know that's kind of like a basic. In my experience, I think probably 2/3 have like true goals. 2/3, I would say.
Well, what I guess that one of the question is what makes a goal.
I would say a goal is something. I mean, in my opinion, there's many metrics of success. There's values, vision. There's other metrics of success, but a goal is a external. Is something you can measure. So it's an accomplishment. It's something that you can actually measure. Yeah. So, for instance, it's like, I want to let a happy time, or whatever the fuck we hear people say, or, I just want to live the life of dreams, or whatever. Like, that's
no, okay, but I'll give you a real version of that. By the way, a real version of that is, I want to sustain myself from my art alone. That's an example.
That's an example of a yes. But
that's not a good goal.
Well,
I want to be clear. It's not a good goal.
No, it's not. But that's an example of something we hear a lot.
Because one of the reasons why I do think that it's challenging specifically for actors to set goals is because we, unlike even many other art forms, have sort of been led to believe that we should be able to do it all. We talk about how TV, film, and theater, for example, they're different. And let's not even talk about voiceover and commercials. That's like talking about becoming a zookeeper. They're just other industries altogether. And I think this is hard because actors have a put-me-in coach kind of mentality, which is not a bad thing in terms of being opportunistic, but it's certainly shitty in terms of setting goals when you just think, I'll do it all.
What are we never really talk about SMART goals.
Okay.
Do you know what a SMART goal
Yeah.
is? What is it? It's specific, measurable.
Yeah.
What is it or something? I don't really, but that's good.
It's realistic. It's like timeline.
Realistic timeline.
Yeah, something
I
like
mean,
that.
I don't really, but it's like, I think that what you're so right about is that I think actors are good at setting, I would say having visions. They're good at having visions of what they want their life to look like, which is great, but they're not good at being, okay, breaking it down to its metrics, to its
Right.
working pieces.
Right.
Like, oh, that means I need to get to this thing by this time, or that means that I need to know these many people by this point, or that I need to, have this many auditions over the next blank, or
Yes.
I need to, create these many projects by X, right? So that is where
And why are we afraid of that? Why are actors
I think it's a
afraid of
couple. I mean, we have some of them listed here, which I think is good. I think
that? Oh, uh-huh.
a big one. Yeah, believe it or not, we're reading off of this. Well, I think that I added this, and I think I'll speak for myself. It's amazing. I'm 31, and soon to be 32 in a couple of weeks.
16 days.
Yeah, and
Do you know when my birthday is?
I don't.
Exactly.
I'm a straight man.
Only gays remember birthdays.
Only gays and women remember birthdays. Yeah, I don't know about
The sensitive ones.
I don't know about the other.
Not you
ones.
machismo ones who
Yeah.
run the world. You're too busy.
You're too busy
taking care of us.
Too busy putting everybody down. So yeah, I think it's that and I think you grow complacent and numb. I think the industry beats you down, so it's hard to look ahead.
Interesting.
And say, what do I genuinely think I'm working with somebody right now who has a lot of difficulty setting goals and getting clear about what they want, because and I think a lot of it has to do with life beats you down, this business beats you down. And so even being able to verbalize something that you want in the future
Interesting.
and that you could have, I think is very challenging.
It's funny you say that. Where I think you're absolutely right about this is a lot of people seem to be terrified of their goals because what if they don't meet them? It's hard.
Yeah.
Meaning, let me not even set myself up for disappointment.
Yep.
Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of success. They're almost intertwined. And so I think there's something to be said for that what you're right about. I've seen it a lot too.
Well, and I'll speak for myself. It's hard. I do have goals, but I lose. It's amazing how if I'm not always on my fucking plan and during my weekly reviews, it's amazing how quickly they leave.
Good point.
Because I'm trying to just get by, because we're just trying to fucking live and we're trying to get by, and so it's hard to be oh yeah, that's right, I want that, that's the thing I want.
Well, it's interesting you're talking about the consistency or lack of consistency, because what's a common goal? So for example, I probably need to lose about 5 pounds.
I could stand to put on a little weight.
I could stand to lose about 2.5 to 5 pounds. So if I have a goal of losing 2.5 to 5 pounds, pass out.
Yeah.
No, but if it's okay, I need to lose 25 pounds. You laugh again. Harder.
No, you're great the way you are.
No, I made a joke in rehearsal the other day. We were talking like ages or something, and I was like, oh, we're doing an age check. I'll start. I'm 27, and the room guffawed, and I was like, that's a little harder than I expected that laugh to go.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, if we have a goal like that, consistency is the only thing that's going to make it through. So to your point, if I have I'm going to work out and eat healthy for 30 days, and 4 days in, I'm eating my ginger crisps or whatever and not moving, all of a sudden the goals become fuzzy. Per your point, I think that's a really good point.
Well, and I just want to say one thing about this. Here's another reason why goals are hard to set for actors. It's because, per your point,
eats another ginger crisp.
like your diabetes.
Don't. That's okay. That's when I get scared. Like diabetes.
Do you have diabetes in your family?
No.
See, I come from a family of fat asses, but no diabetes. Actually, no. My grandma lost her leg. I forgot about that.
I think you told me that before.
Yeah.
No, there's no diabetes. I have good genes.
Good. All right. Anyway, so what were we talking about? Oh, I think another reason why goals are hard to set for actors, and this is what's coming from me, is like, I wake up. What's driving me today? And per your point, what's hard about a goal is you're not always going to feel like going after a goal and, so is that really a goal? Is that really what I want? And it's like, and this is, I think, some weird bullshit with that, with artists in general, where it's like, we're kind of like, we just kind of float on our motivation and our feelings in the moment. And, if that works for you, great. But a goal is something that you have to check in the craziness of life. You have to go, what am I doing? What do I want? Where am I going? And that requires some sort of operating system of checking in with them consistently and reminding yourself and holding yourself up to that standard.
Even when things don't go well. And
yes.
This is actually where I think people really, what we're talking about now actually is probably what the biggest thing that I would argue throws especially artists off from their goals. Because we own a flower shop. And we have 2 bad months. All of our soil goes bad, and our plants rot and die, and we can't keep selling, and we got to rebuild. And we got to figure out what we're gonna do. Well, we're not gonna be like, you know what? I don't like this because like this feels bad, so I'm not gonna run my. No, we have the brick and mortar. We have a whole business. Our family relies on it. And artists, I think, when they get demoralized, when they are thrown off. Mike, you said something to me. I quoted you the other day. I forget what it was something you had auditioned for that you didn't book. I forget what it was. It was a long list. But I remember we were on the phone because you were close to it. And you said, what's hard about this moment is that what you want to do is just stop and put your head in the sand for a little bit and be done for a minute.
Yeah.
And not keep going, not wake up. And I think that this is really common in terms of goals, because if you don't get the validation, and that's the big thing, and I want to bring this idea of validation back to another point for a second. We seek so much outside validation that to the point about what's the point of setting a goal, because we can't dictate what's to come. We spend, I really believe, so much of our time putting our power in the hands of so many other people, waiting for them to give us the validation that we need to either keep going or for them to create an opportunity for ourselves. Yep. And it makes it very, very difficult to either stay on track with our goals or set goals in the first place.
Well, you have to hold yourself up to your own yardstick, that's what's hard, and that's what you're getting at too, is that like, I think, it's setting goals is hard because it's lonely in this respect. It's based off of your values, you decide what your goal is. I know somebody I hung out with very recently who is very, 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 very successful by all intents and purpose, by anybody's standards, but is very unhappy. This is an actor. And they're not doing, I think, the kind of work that they want to be doing. And I was talking to this person. I don't talk to this person a lot. And I was like, wow, you have to. So when you set a goal, it's like almost like you isolate everybody else out of the equation, and it's you. What do you want? And now you are accountable to that. And the other thing, too, is pressure, right? So I think another reason why people don't like goals is because whenever we set a goal with an actor or an artist or whatever it is, there's excitement, but there's also fear. Expectation, because now you have something that is putting pressure on you, and people don't.
We got to do a whole episode on pressure, because this is a huge, I think what you're bringing up is huge. And you speak more to this because I feel like I lived my life in a pressure box. And so I'm so used to it, for better and certainly for worse.
Yeah.
so I have a high capacity for dealing with pressure, and I'm not saying that pat myself on the back per se, but it's where I don't always understand.
Well, it's where you thrive. Some people thrive under pressure, and that's where they come alive.
Yeah.
And when you set a goal and say, this is what I want by this time, now you have, you've built a little monster that, we'll talk about this one day, but it's like a little monster now that's knocking on your door saying, remember this.
Constantly.
Remember that's what you wanted. Even on the days where I don't feel like that, even when I don't have the motivation or the drive or I don't want to go after those things, I still have that thing there. And, there's nothing wrong with changing goals. But, when we talk about, doing a review, resetting versus adapting, like one of the things we got to talk about, like, is, well, if your goals are changing every day,
that's a problem.
That's probably a problem. Yeah. That means that you're just, not consistent. And you got to have the discipline to go, no, it doesn't matter how the fuck I feel. This is what the fuck I'm going after right now. And the whole point is that, you're going to war with yourself. You're going to war with yourself. There's a
every day.
I'm not trying to be like
every day.
Now I'm going to sound like I'm going to sound real cis right now. But it's like,
I want you to kind of like flip and take a really gay voice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'll do it in a gay voice. That'll make it better or whatever. But like, but it's like, you're at it when you set a goal, like you're at war with the weak part of yourself.
Absolutely.
You're at war with the weak part of yourself that's going to give you every excuse in the world on why you should not be going after that, why you don't have what it takes. Hey, just this once. This is irrelevant, but it kind of is relevant. Like, where I struggle after a performance. After a performance, I fucking struggle, man, because you're so emotionally drained after a show, and like you're vulnerable, like you're emotionally drained, you're tired, and it's like that's when people get fucked up after, as like people get fucking fucked up because it's like you need some sort of like release, and it's like and it's like I struggle with this because it's like. Yeah, it's like I have very high standards, and we'll talk about high standards, big goals for yourself. And it's like my life and my routines are not structured in a way that supports that. And like, it's in those very vulnerable moments where all your guards are down, where you have, where you're rejected, where you're tired, where you're, nobody believes in you. You feel like you're alone. And it's like, that there's going to be the weak part of you that's going to try and fucking sabotage. And how do you have the discipline to go, that's what I'm going after, no matter how I feel, no matter what the fuck happens, that's what I'm about.
Well, only because it relates to this, because it relates to goal setting too. I forget his name. He's a big, it's so funny. People are always like, do you listen to Tony Robbins? I know all these people, but I don't really know their names.
Yeah.
But this one guy, I've quoted him now several times. He said that successful people have these three traits. They have a superiority complex. They have an innate fear that they're not going to live up to their full potential or meeting their goals. And they have impulse control. And I think it's fascinating. It's like what we're talking about, because when we're talking about goal setting, you have your goals. Could be not a fear is maybe not the right word, but a fear like I won't live up to them. Therefore, I've got to meet them every day, and I'm going to have the discipline, which is a whole other topic, to meet those goals. But I want to let's move on, because in a bigger sense, though, to your point, I like how we kind of opaquely define the idea of a goal as being something tangible. Posse M were here, he'd know the exact. He's very clear about this. But for me, and this, for me, one of the most important things in terms of goal setting is direction.
Right.
And in some ways, if nothing else, like most importantly, it's direction, because that also allows for you to go into every single week knowing this is where I'm headed and why. And to your point about staying on track, because what happens a lot with us artists too? We get thrown off track, especially actors. We get a 6-line audition, and next thing you know, it doesn't matter that we had to, finish preparing X, Y, or Z, a rehearsal, or that reading that we're trying to produce, or we're trying to something. All of a sudden, we're all concerned about this, and we just go completely off track. This is a larger workflow conversation in terms of, that we've been talking about how to stay the course. But stay the course, that's even a micro example of a goal for a week. So in a lot of ways, goals just as direction for clarity of where you're going, and subsequently the work that you're doing is one of the biggest benefits of having a goal in the first place.
Well, listen, it's funny. When we talk to, some artists, we just get a higher quality people coming in now, I think, to Artist Strategy, which is amazing. Like, we're getting just
great people.
Just higher tier people who've worked like on big shit and it's like whatever. But I think especially in the beginning, a lot of people we get, it's like, well, what's your business? Like, okay, like, what are you doing for your business? And it's like, well, my agent gets me auditions, or I got the headshots.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, how does this relate to goals? You are not running a business if you have no goals. A business does not exist without goals. Imagine if I opened up the flower shop, per your point, and I said, well, I'm just going to make sure my flowers the prettiest they can be.
Exactly.
Or I'm going to make sure that I treat every customer who comes to the door with respect, and I really try to figure, it's like, you're not going to, no, when you run a business, okay, no. Now all of a sudden you have an overhead that you need to surpass.
Sure.
So you need to bring a certain amount of revenue that surpasses that overhead. Okay, so now all of a sudden now you have a goal. I need to make X amount of money.
Sure.
So what are my strategies to make sure, well, I need to push this much product. Okay, well, I need to sell this many things. A business does not exist without goals. If you do not have long-term goals and short-term goals to meet those long-term goals, but also just short-term goals, then you don't have a business, because you can't make a plan. And this is at the end of the day, goals are the cornerstone of a plan.
Sure.
And you can't build a plan without understanding what mile markers you're trying to hit. This seems obvious, but it's amazing how many people do not have goals. And let me say the thing about direction.
Yeah.
The point about direction is, that's the thing, is I don't really give a shit about goals. I mean, I do with my clients, but I give more of a shit about them because you and I both know there are 400,000 things you could do. There are a million ways this can happen. And by this can happen, I guess what I mean is that, you become an artist who works sustainably, and there's 40 million ways that can happen. I mean, take your pick. When you set goals, it's your way of honing in.
Sure.
And focusing your energy. And so by going after, as opposed to, oh, should I do this way or this way? If I'm going after this thing, the strategies that I'm going to have to employ to get to that goal, that's what's going to kick up other things that I didn't expect. The benefit about goals is that, per your point about the audition, yes, don't just fall into short term. Be sure you have the discipline to go after those things. But when you go after things for real that are sharp in your mind, you're going to kick up opportunities that you never saw coming, because you're actually doing something. Whereas, the final thing I'll say, I'm so sorry. Let's say when somebody says, you know what I'm going to do? Every day I'm going to apply on Backstage to 3 jobs. That's not a goal. That's a strategy. Okay? What's the goal? Well, my goal is I want to be in a movie this year. Okay. So now, leading with the goal and not the strategy, there are 400 strategies I can employ to get to that goal. Maybe, yes, I'll apply on Backstage every day. Don't recommend that.
Do people really apply on Backstage? Do people really use that?
I don't know, but you just follow the example.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll also, I'll figure out ways to connect with filmmakers. I'll maybe do a screening series. Maybe I'll produce a short. Whereas when people, if all I'm doing is applying on Backstage 3 times a day, I do that. Okay, I'm done. Goals open up the many strategies that you can employ.
Here's why. Because you have to continue to check in.
That too.
Am I doing? How am I doing on working towards this goal? Oh, not well. Okay. Well, rather than living up to the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results,
Right.
I'm now going to think how I can modify. And we're going to talk about adapting goals. But what you're also getting at is specifically what goals can do for us in terms of the work to be done. So here's an example.
Right.
And let's give some examples in relation to our fabulous actors. Casting, right? Or specifically relationships to be made. This could be for casting, directors, writers, whatever, people in the business. But let's stick with casting for a moment. The goal shouldn't be to just know every casting director ever. Because to what end? What are you actually working towards there? So, for example, I want to play in the indie scene. I want to do theater, specifically MT. Or I'm interested in the regions, or whatever it may be. That gives me even clearer direction, so that then I can go, okay, well, so I really want these 16. I don't need the plethora of just wasting money on all these.
Well,
pay to plays with random casting directors.
Well, per your point, and that's the thing is, because we'll have people who come to us and they're like, I'm really, again, they lead with strategy and not with goals. So they'll be like, you know what I do every day is I make sure I cold submit to like 3 casting people a week, or I like cold email 3 casting people a week. And they're like really proud that they do that strategy. But again, they're leading with a strategy as opposed to going, well, why are you doing that?
Right.
Oh, I'm doing it because I want to book television work. Okay. Well, okay, so you want to book a X television job. You want to book a series regular in a couple of years. Okay, so yes, great. Sure, why not cold submit to the casting? But that's that's the root. Now, what branches of come off of that? That's what you need to lead with.
Right.
Okay. Oh, maybe I should be going after writers, young writers, people who I think may be staffed on a show in the next couple of years. Let me get ahead. Who might those people be? Playwrights, writers' assistants. If I'm into comedy, comedians, whatever, directors, like who does direct episodes of television? I don't know. Oh, well, what would it mean for me to start to think about what I could produce and get an EP attached to? How do I
It absolutely informs self-producing, which is
Yes.
part of what you're talking about. Because when
Yes.
you're trying to build relationships with these people, we already didn't, whatever episode that was, when we were talking about the value of that, it absolutely gives you some clarity there. But let's talk about representation as part of this too. Because, we know this is a fatal flaw that most actors just please give me someone, as though
It's hard not to
Susie in
fall into that.
Pennsylvania is, the agent who has 38 random clients but has no real relationship in the business is somehow going to get these people in the room. Again, let's not even go there. But in terms of who you want to focus on,
I know.
it's good. And what's helpful about that is, maybe you have widowed it down to 13 offices. And go back to your point, Mike, about what can come of that, of clarity of niching down. It doesn't mean that you're going to end up with specifically one of those 13, but getting in that direction, you might start to cultivate X, Y, or Z clients or do some research, and that direction might take you to a surprise rep. The other thing you're talking about in terms of casting and what I'm saying in terms of reps in relation to all this is, what is your point of view? What's your vision? Because let's just jump 4 steps ahead. You got your rep meeting now. Well, what do you want to do? Anything and everything?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If I'm an agent, I maybe low tier agents who are just sort of trying to hit the buttons and see where the industry takes them kind of makes sense. But good agents, good representation is going, where does this person meet the demands of the marketplace? And if you don't have a vision or a sense of self or goals that can give them direction, they're going to be as clueless as you are.
Period.
Just to say that.
And no, I think that's a point well made. And again, I know I keep harping on this point, but again, somebody says to me, I want to be a star. Okay, I want to be a star. I want to be on a how and not to be again having that. Well, I just need reps. Well, really, in reality, signing with a boutique agency is not going to really make a difference. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to get you closer to that
Sure.
goal of, or that really a vision of I want to be a star. Well, specifically what I'm saying is in 5 years I would love to be to lead a franchise of some kind. Okay. Signing the least of your concerns should be signing with even a decent mid-tier agency. Like that's not where you need to be spending your time.
Well, it's
Where
funny.
you probably need to be spending your time is like, how do I break out? How do I produce
Exactly.
something that fucking breaks me out like big time?
Or grow an audience.
Or grow an audience.
Because it also speaks to marketing in this regard. We know someone who came to us once and was like, I want to be essentially a global sensation. I want to be the face of a Marvel film. And so, okay, so what are you talking about there? So there's the pathway they wanted to take, which was luck and fantasy, and I just
co-stars. I mean, really, it was booking their way. Really, what it was though, it was they wanted to. What was fascinating is they wanted to book their way to that.
Exactly.
You're not going to book your way to that. That's not.
Or again, if you do, it's luck and fantasy.
Exactly.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Like the co-star will lead to the guest, will lead to the series, will lead to
as opposed to creating the space for themselves in the market. And again, going back to why goals clarify marketing. Oh, so you need to have a massive audience. When people come to us, because we always start with artist statement, mission, values, vision.
True.
And the vision, if people saying like, I want to be a leader in X, Y, or Z community, or I want to be the face of LGBTQ, whatever. Okay, so what you're saying is growing a platform. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about developing a platform. No problem. How do you develop a platform? Once again, an owned audience. So that gives clarity of like, okay, now I know where we're headed. And just to say, and we're going to do an episode on this in a few weeks or a month or something like that. But to be alive in 2023, soon to be 2024, means to have the power to grow an owned audience.
Right. And again, growing an owned audience is not a strong enough goal. You need to go, okay, well,
sure.
How many people do I want? Where do I want to be? By what point?
Exactly.
You need to do all of that too. I want X amount of followers by this time. But again, what we're talking about is being clear about what you want, because what we're also, and this is why our plan I think is useful, really useful for people, is because people jump from I want to be a global sensation to where they are right now.
Sure.
As opposed to figuring out the in between.
What's the steps? Macro to micro.
Because if I want to be a global sensation, well, I need to start booking co-stars. Really?
Is that if you really think about it?
Is that really gonna do it? It's like not really.
It's really fucking Mike. It's almost driving me nuts because the more we get just that concept. We've been talking about this a lot recently, like basically like playing for pittance, chasing after the crumbs of practically nothing. Who cares? Listen, those co-stars, these bookings, we get it. We want them. I want the money. I want, they do lend credibility. Of course, great. And if they come in from your agents that are hitting the buttons, fabulous, no problem. But the fact that you would put so much focus on that,
it's insane. Well, really my opinion with the reps, I mean, I know it's kind of like, but where I'm sort of shifting with all of this is like, skip. Go right to the big ones. That's my opinion. I want the best of them. Okay, so what am I going to do in the next 2 years where UTA could actually look at me? Or CAA could actually look at me? Or Gersh or whatever. Like, how can I, as opposed to wasting my fucking time, and people may not like this, trying to get to people at the bottom of the totem pole, ask yourself, how are you going to be up here? What am I going to, per your point, it's owned audience, and it's really marketing and self-producing.
I don't disagree with that. The only thing I'll say is I do think you can do both at the same time in this regard.
Yes, sure.
Have a developmental rep that, again, no problem, folks. Go for the day player stuff. Go for the off-Broadway regional gigs. I happily do that myself. It's not an issue. But we can't rely on that solely, and specifically for me, because I have bigger goals. The two other areas that I just want to hit in relation to goals being valuable in terms of direction is craft improvement.
We have to talk about this, yeah.
What are you actually working on?
I was thinking about this last night. I was doing I was doing the show. I'm reading Can't Hurt Me right now, which is like everybody's like rolling
What
their
is that?
eyes. That's the David Goggins book. I was saying to a client, I was reading it, and
Who's
she was
David
like,
Goggins?
David Goggins is he's that black guy. He was a Navy SEAL, and he's like an ultra marathon
you were telling me
runner.
about him.
He's like, stay hard. He's like, I'm the hardest motherfucker. And he's like, but he has this book, every straight white man, that's what she like. When I said this, I was like reading this book. She was like, you're like every straight white man I've ever met. They all, but because he's incredible, he was like, I really recommend this book. You would love it. It's
What's
like,
it called?
Can't Hurt Me.
Okay.
But it's like, basically he became like an elite Navy SEAL and like had a horrific life, and it's just all about his lived experience, whatever. But I was reading it last night and I was doing the show, and I was like, wow, like, here's what's fucking crazy, right? What's crazy is I want to hold myself to the highest standards of my art. Excellence. How can I do that if I don't know what good art means and what it looks like?
Absolutely.
How the fuck? And it's like, I kind of like, there are those like, because I prep, and not like emotional prep, but I just more like get in a headspace of like, okay. And it's like, well, I like kind of like, I'm just like, wow, like, I don't know what I'm trying to do out there. Like, there are days, I mean, I do, but like, again, you have to remind yourself, what am I trying to actually do out there? When I step out on fucking stage, or I step out in front of the camera, like, what is my goal? What is my goal as the actor? What am I really trying to do? And if I haven't verbalized that very clear, and it could be esoteric, if I were to say what that is for me right now, people would go, what? But for me, it's crystal clear. I know what it is. I know what it looks like. I know how to do it. Well, I can't have standards. I don't have standards for my art unless I have goals for how good art is supposed to be.
And to be clear, yeah, it's like someone might be listening to this or watching this and going, well, of course I know what I like. Oh, sure. But without the goals, without clarity, and it's hard for you to begin to name, the specifics of what that makes up, which, getting back to craft improvement, most actors sort of, class to class to random class, as opposed to, well, wait a second. What am I actually working on, and why? Oh, because I have this goal, but I've talked about dance. I keep saying this, but like, if I'm going to work at the highest level in musical theater, it's a small thing, but not, movement, dance. And I do consider myself a very physical actor, but it is part of the form. How could I deny that, A, but B, without knowing that that's where I'm working towards? I need that to help dictate what I'm tangibly working towards.
And you're talking about, which is good, like longer term improvement. Like, let me give an example. Laura Henry had this quote, and I remember this from years ago, where she was like, Robert Duvall said something like, a good actor does what they say they're going to do. And that can be different. So, like, this is not me, but, like, just to use an example, when I walk on stage, I want to make sure that I want to play every single action that I set out for myself. Like, I want to play every single action. That's an example of a goal.
Do actors really do that, by the way? This is why I never understand actions. And this is why I love Laura Henry teaching actions, because actions was book work. It helps you in a lot of ways, in my opinion. This is just important for me to say.
I don't care if... Well,
I know, but this is random, but I'm being tangential about this because I never have understood actions. I understood actions from the standpoint of, this is how my character behaves and goes after things, but I'm not going to lambast someone with my hello.
Well, that's how you do it. I mean, I don't do actions.
Actors really do that?
I don't know.
That's
people
just
do.
insane to me.
I mean, listen.
How do you act like that?
A lot of people do. Well, that's the thing. Well, who cares how the sausage is made? No, who the fuck cares? Process is so. I mean, we should talk about craft movement another time. It's like, who gives it? I mean, everybody's making it up. What's good at? Like, it's all just you. Good acting at the end of the day is people on the outside watch it and determine. How you get there doesn't fucking matter.
Sure.
There's too much There's too much emphasis on training and shit, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Who cares? But anyway, what I'm saying is that what I find helpful, I don't care if it's like when I step on stage, I need to see the color green the whole time. I don't care if that's I'm not here to tell you how to act, but you should go out on stage with a goal. In my opinion, you should go out on stage with a clear goal that you can go after. And I'm not saying actions or whatever. If it's like I want to remember everything everybody else does, or I don't know, whatever the fuck, but you need to go out there because you can't hold yourself to a standard if you don't know
Totally
what success looks like.
And the final one in terms of what goals can help us clarify, it might feel a lot of people don't consider this, Mike, but when it comes to financials in terms of craft, like what do I need to be able to invest in? And essentially, like, you know, how much freedom do you need? How much money do you need? You know, you want to be out here swinging in terms of producing X, Y, or Z features. We talk about that, or you're looking for, you know, more creative freedom in your day-to-day. Right. Having clarity of your goals can even dictate what you're finding. I mean, it sounds so obvious when you think about it. It's your point about the flower shop and here's our overhead and trying to exceed that. If we don't, it's not about necessarily, oh, I want to make $60,000 from acting. That's not necessarily it. But let's go back to the person who's like, I want to be a global name. Okay, well, what does that take? And what are the resources you need to make that happen? Do you need to invest in a publicist? Probably. So do you have the $3,000 a month to make that happen? No problem. But then that's part of the goal.
But they need to figure out a way to get that money, right? Yeah.
Okay, you wanted to talk about this, and I like this. The importance of setting big goals.
Well, again, I just think that, you know, I think that where most people, where it's hard, especially as you get, I think obviously when we're younger, early 20s, teens, whatever, you know, it's very easy to dream big. It's very easy to do that before, like, you know, you start getting sort of calloused by, you know, and I love this. He says this and David Goggins says it in the book. He's like, everybody gets calloused. Some people get calloused, and their you know,
drives them.
Well, no, he says some people, the callousness looks like resentment, victimization, bitterness. That's what callous looks like for some people. And for some people, when they get calloused, it means that they get tougher. Like their minds get tougher. And so you're going to get calloused either way. The question is, which way are you going?
What do you do with it?
Are you going to get calloused into victimization, or you get calloused into whatever? But
And unfortunately, I would argue most artists get calloused into victimization.
Of course, and resentment, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not, you know, yes, that's the struggle. That's the fucking struggle. That is, you know, I wish we could redo that mindset episode sometimes, because I'm like, that is the ultimate struggle is how do you, I know it's like everybody fucking says this, but how do you start to, you know, go from victimization and things are happening to me to like I make things happen. Like
Absolutely.
that is very hard. But how does this relate to goals? We can't settle. We cannot settle. Listen, at the end of the day, yes, would I be happy if I was able to support a family, being an actor and like just baseline support a family? Of course, that would be amazing. But that's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. That's not like an ordinary occurrence. That's not like, it's like that's incredibly difficult. And if that's what I'm aiming for, I'm not going to get anywhere close to that. I need to hold, again, this is also a conversation about excellence. You cannot be excellent unless you have a standard.
Sure.
And a standard is part of standards is a goal.
Yeah.
You need to know what success looks like and hold yourself to that. So, you know, when you settle for like, oh, I just want to be able to do this. I just want to be able to, I just want to get that coast. I just want to be able to, it's like now all of a sudden as you are lowering the bar for yourself, and it feels safe and it feels more comfortable and it feels like we're slowing down. There's this quote I heard recently that was like, oh my fucking God, I love that. You know, Andretti, the fucking racer, he's a very, Mario Andretti or whatever, he's a very famous, most famous race car driver ever. He said, if you feel like you're in control, then you're not going fast enough.
Interesting.
I
like
love that quote. It's like,
I do.
It's like that's a great fucking quote, isn't it? It's
I do. Well, because I mean, you and I talk about this a lot, you know, with our lives, with our work, with, you know, our business, because we're constantly kicking up new dirt, and yet, but of course, because, you know, otherwise, if we're just sort of placating ourselves, going day to day simply, what's the point?
Well, this is capitalism. So sorry. This is what capitalism is. If you want to be in business for yourself, which is what being an artist is, you are now on the free market. You're not an employee working for another company. You are on the free fucking market. And complacency on the free market is death.
Dangerous.
It's death. That's what, if you, I mean, that
100%.
That's, look, artist strategy. Let's talk artist strategy. We get complacent sometimes in this respect. We go like, well, we just got to make it to this. As long as we can get it here, that's dangerous. We have to always be going, no, how are we going to maximize our impact, maximize, you know, our reach and the emotional influence we're going to have on people? Because in capitalism, when you start to settle, that you're going to fall behind. You're not going to make it because you're not going to take the massive action needed to actually see any sort of sustainability.
Well, one of the biggest things here as part of this too, setting goals, is setting big goals at that, is that if goals are direction, and it's from the direction and the work that comes from the direction that we also realize other opportunities, then why do we just again want to settle in that I just want to do that? You know, shoot for the moon, land among the stars.
Of course, yeah.
We need the big goals so that we're aiming for something bigger, so that then wherever we end up, you know, if we get there, amazing. But if we can at least pull ourselves up the other side of the mountain that we didn't think we can get to. I also just want to say, to your point, because I do hear it a lot, I just want this. I just want to work. You know, it's like, well, what are you talking about? I do have to go back to the artists being beaten down, because I think that I just met with someone the other day who's going to start working with us soon, who you can tell is terrified of saying their goals, because they really are just have their hand out for like, please, I just want to be creative and I want to sustain myself and not go into debt constantly. And I get it. I get why that's where they're going, because they feel like, well, at least I can maybe do that.
Right.
At least I can do the minimum. But you and I know, per your point about capitalism,
that we're on the free market. Well, that's the thing too. That's why an actor is an entrepreneur, and you need to accept that, because you can't have just. A business can't be just. Unfortunately, whether it's fucked up, you know, what you're disregarding value judgments of you think it's bad, if it's good or whatever. There is no just. There is no I just want this, I just want that. Like, if you want to play fucking ball in the marketplace, in any marketplace, if you want to play ball, you need to be excellent, and you need to be striving for the best. You need to be going big, and it's difficult when you're 40 years old, you know, and you're like, I've never even booked a professional job, and I want to be on Broadway. Yeah, like, it seems preposterous for me to say I want to be on Broadway.
Absolutely,
but listen, and that's and I understand that. I understand that feels like such an impossibility to you. But it is possible.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to pay a very high price.
Lois Smith, that woman who won the Oscar.
There you go.
In her 80s.
There you go.
I mean, there you go. I'm just saying, like, there are Ann Dowd. Ann Dowd tells the story of, you know, you and what I'd be curious. Let's get Annie. You want to come on? Because I'd be curious what her mindset and goals have been. What's kept her in the game. I know I kind of want to do that mindset episode as well. Okay. So listen, I think we made a pretty strong case for the importance of goals. Now let's talk a little bit, because it's the end of the year. I think this is literally going to be out on like New Year's Eve 28th or something. Yeah, something like that. Let's talk about how in this moment we are able to do a bit of a review, because whether you're working from goals or whether you're not working from goals, this can help you to begin to consider how you can jump into 2024 with, per what we're talking about, more direction.
Sure. Okay, so the first question is in a big sense, what worked and what did not work this year? What was working, and just in a general macro sense, you know, what strategies did I employ this year that, you know, brought me closer to that worked? Well, how do I determine worked? That's the fucking thing, right? Yeah. Well, you need goals. That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's how you determine if it's like, it's like when, oh God, it's so fucking crazy. It's like when people, this. Okay. It's like if a client were to say to me, I'll just be random. I'll make something up. Hey, like this was a great year because I got like a great job. Like, I got like such a sweet gig, like working for as an assistant at like a brokerage, and like pays really well, and I'm able to I got moved into an apartment I want, and it's like great, and I'm like, okay, but is that what were your goals? Are you trying to be an actor? Like what? Yeah. Like how is that?
This was a job outside of acting entirely.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so like great, like you're having, but what are your goals? So you don't know if these things work without goals, but what strategies worked, what strategies didn't work, what routines. So like if you do have routines, bad and good, I think I mainly have bad routines, but like, what routines, bad or good, were working or not working, and part of that is also habits. I don't know if we have time to like really get into this personally for ourselves, but
I think we could talk about these next few questions.
Yeah.
Because I think in all of this, when you sort of ask yourself those questions, when you're sort of doing that review of essentially what worked and what did not work, I think your point is well made. Strategies, routines, habits. Then you sort of have to ask yourself, okay, well, what do I do with this information? Do I adapt or do I reset? And you and I were talking about this before we started this, and I think we could continue the convo now, because Mike and I were talking about, okay, well, what's the difference between adapting and resetting goals? And for me, adapting has to do with modifying, more so even in the micro, based off of the path that you're staying true to. So Mike gave the example of, my goals were 3 co-stars versus my goal is a series regular. That's not necessarily, in my opinion, a new goal, because it's still on the pathway to whatever that TV career is. But while resetting is starting anew. And starting anew could also mean a couple of things, from, my 3-day player roles to, no, I want to start a production company, and I want to also actually really develop my theater career. That's an example of like I'm resetting. So I think that's part of the question too, in the midst of asking yourself within this year-end review, do I need to adapt or do I need to reset some of my goals?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and I mean, look, like this idea about there's something very powerful in a restart, and obviously there's something very powerful about that, about like starting. That's why Monday I'll start. Or, I'll start as soon as this thing is over, right? It's like you hear that all the time. Like there's a lot of emotional power in that. However, again, what we were saying about discipline with your goals is that just because you've been going after something for a week.
Yeah.
And that's why strategies are interchangeable. It's like the example I'll fucking use. It's like the one I hear all the fucking time is like, okay, so this person's goal is to book 2 television gigs this year. Okay, whatever. 2-3 television gigs this year. Okay, they start, they're a week in. I cultivated this casting person. They didn't get back to me. It didn't work. It's like, what? It's like 80% of the shit you do is not going to fucking work.
Mm-hmm. And
so if you're too, again, focused on the micro, on the strategies, then you can't, then you're not going to, then not leading with, again, each week or checking with your goals. That's different. How does that relate to adapting? Well, you're adapting the strategies, really. That's what you're adapting.
Yes.
When you reset, that is, and you can, and look, when you reset, that means you are operating on a different timeline. You're making up a new timeline. And you're making up new goals. If you feel like you're resetting every couple of days, redefining what it is you want every couple of days, then you just might be sort of reacting to, just being beaten down by,
that. And I probably would argue that you don't have a clear enough why. Again, made
That's
up of
true too.
Mission, values, and vision. Where are you going? What's this true? Well, okay. And here are some other questions that and maybe you and I should talk these out ourselves, because in my collective the other day, which we specifically focused, which are these weekly working groups outside of the one-on-one work that we do, we were focusing on resetting versus adapting goals. And these were the prompts that I brought in, and we had a really good conversation about them. And so we encourage you to reflect on these for yourself. And looking back over your year, what have been some of your biggest quote-unquote successes? I should say at the outset, everyone defines success differently. Everyone defines quote-unquote failure differently. So we're not trying to put that on anybody, but you get the basic gist. What have been some of your biggest successes, and how have those successes informed your goals for the future? I think it's a good question, and the same can be true both for failures.
Yeah,
I'll speak to both mine.
Go ahead.
As an example of a success that's informed. Okay, an example of a success for me. I told you that I was interested. You knew that I was sort of trying to break open the directing piece for me again. I did not do that when I moved to New York because I really wanted to get my foothold as an actor, which I've done, clarify that brand there. But now I'm ready, right? So I said that to my manager. I said, how do we want to go about this? And do we want to get reps? And he said, no, I think you should do it one-to-one, basically building relationships. And I've done that. And there are 2 shows that I'm going to be directing in the coming year. And that success has reshaped my goal for the future, because in some ways, I suppose it expanded it, where me going like, okay, where do I begin here, right? Where do I begin to craft those relationships? Well, now I have something that can go, oh, I want to be directing 3 or 4 shows a year, 2 or 3 shows a year, and I want to be working at these specific theaters. And even over the past couple of weeks, to your point about strategies, it has dictated how I start to create different target lists, different relationships, going back to the beginning of what we said. I'll say something about my biggest failure in relation to this, and how it's also shaped my goal for the future. I've always worked hard, but I feel like I've lost my structure at moments a few times throughout the year. Become a bit reactionary myself, as opposed to working within the confines of something that's pretty structured. And that I've been spending a lot of time on this myself recently, but it really has clarified moving into, with all this added responsibility and consequence that comes from just building a career in this industry. The more that the more relationships you make, the higher tier work you do, there's just more pressure, going back to the point. And so how it's shaped my goals for the future is to really not only clarify, but to stay as consistent as I can with that work structure for myself, because it is the only way that I'm going to be able to meet my goals. And that's a whole other conversation for another time. But that's an example of my failure from the year of losing some of that structure and then clarifying what I need to do in the future.
Yeah, I'll be brief with mine. I think the biggest successes.
Did I just talk for like 10 minutes?
No, I just thought, I thought it was good. No, I think the biggest successes were, what we've done for Artist Strategy this year in terms of getting paid consistently, as an example, getting paid consistently, making, a lot more than we did, and we continue to scale, and that's been a huge success. And that was a very intentional plan we both had for this year. Yeah. It was very, very intentional this year. Really happy with that. I'm also happy with, I think the biggest success, again, I think is the clarification of my process as an actor and understanding what it is I'm doing when I act. And being crystal clear about that, I think has been the biggest success. I think, that's been a big success for me this year. I think the biggest failure has been my lack of creative output in terms of self-producing. I'm, especially because I'll tell you what's not working, to think about adapting and resetting. I'll be straight up. I think what's not working for me, and I've been more vocal about this, is like we said, 1 out of every 4 auditions I get that I pitch myself for, which is pretty good. 1 out of every 4. And I get close to things. Too much time. Again, going after crumbs. Like going after crumbs to an extent. Make my work, market it. Make my work, grow an audience around my work. That I want that. That is because the other way is a little too slow, and it's a little too what's the word I'm looking for? Crumbs. It's just going after and it's placing still too much power in other people's hands. I think, relationship building, of course, still is very important, but what has not been worked, what is the big failure for me this year, and what I really want to work on next year is making work and marketing it. That is really what I want to focus on. Yeah.
I mean, you and I've had a lot of conversations about that. I 100% think that's the pathway forward.
The final thing I'll say about it is the big realization was when we were having that podcast episode. What was it? Wait for no one.
Yeah.
Self-producing one. At the end of that episode, we were like, assume you'll never book again.
Yeah.
That to me was like kind of a revolutionary thought of like,
what would you do? What would you do with that information?
If you assume that you'll never book anything again.
And why do you want to rely on the other? Oh, because it gives me hope. Oh, does it?
Yeah, no. So
it can hold us back.
I think that's...
Does shifting your goals feel like a step forward or a step backward to you?
Shifting, it does feel like a step backward.
Interesting.
Like even me sort of, because you try something and it doesn't work, or you try an overall strategy and it doesn't work. Listen, being on breakdowns all day and pitching, not that I do that all day by any stretch, but that needs to be a lot less of my strategy these days. Just so much. It feels like to again be reminded that, it really is. I hate to be, a little didactic here, but it's like, self-producing marketing. And it feels like it's hard to not feel like you wasted time a little bit. It's hard not to feel like, Jesus, I'm starting from, now I got this other big piece, but we're always shifting, we're shifting strategies. So it's not a step back, but it feels like a step back, I would say.
I hear that. I don't have that perspective, but I don't say that in a way like, I just always see it. Life is moving forward. But at the same time, you've heard me say this, like, this is what I'm doing with the rest of my life. And therefore, it's inevitable that things are going to shift. And
right, exactly.
They've shifted many times before. I at one point I never realized I would thought of myself living in New York full time, pursuing a commercial career. I really liked DC a bunch. Are you overwhelmed by the idea of the work that comes along with the shifting of goals?
Well, of course.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're not overwhelmed, again, then I don't think you're really that's the thing is, I want to start the imposter syndrome thing. The biggest bullshit can we get rid of imposter syndrome as part of this fucking language? Everybody's, I have imposter syndrome. It's like, who coined that? Whoever coined this should be euthanized. I mean, it's like everybody fucking uses this. It's like imposter syndrome is good. Well, imposter syndrome is...
Don't we all have imposter syndrome? Even the most confident people in the world?
But it's like, yeah, of course. But it's like, also, it's like, okay, so that means you're trying to do something that you're uncomfortable with, and that's scary, and that you're not sure you can do it. That's called, as opposed to calling that imposter syndrome, why don't we call that just like, growing pains? It's like, who made up this bullshit? It's like, I'm so sick of people saying this.
No, exactly. As a way out, as opposed to as though it's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. Imposter syndrome is good. Imposter syndrome, be an imposter, be a fraud. That means that you're trying to push yourself. You're a fucking fraud. And you know what? And you know what I like about this, about the imposter syndrome too? And I tell myself, go out there, be a fraud, but now you got to back it up.
Sure.
Now you got to back it the fuck up. Yeah, you're full of shit. Back it the good. Put that pressure on yourself and back it the fuck up.
I also get overwhelmed. I guess I realize, but it's like what we were talking about at the beginning. I of course get overwhelmed when I'm starting new goals. But I think emotionally, internally, because as my therapist would say, I thrive in chaos. I think that it's a bit of my survival tactic is to quell that feeling, for better and for worse. Because it's like if I'm handed a whole, the project I'm about to direct, actually, I was just thinking about that's scaring me. Of course it's overwhelming, but I quell it. I sort of numb it and just move through it. And so it's not that I don't get overwhelmed. It's just how my body reacts to it.
You know what I like about this too, about the overwhelm thing too, is in this book, I know I keep calling this book because it's like, it really is excellent. And it's like, he says like giving your pain shape. He has this whole thing where it's like, and he has this thing called taking souls, which is basically like, it's like a Navy. I mean, it's very obviously very like machismo, but it's like, it's like, yeah, okay, so there's that part of you saying you can't do it, it's too much. You know what? Not only is it not too much, I'm going to do it fucking phenomenal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think about that? Not only is it not too much, I'm going to do it perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it phenomenally. What if I know that sounds crazy, but what if that's how we started speaking to ourselves? And me, Joshua, as you know, I like break under, I'm like the most overwhelmed person all the time. Like I feel overwhelmed constantly. But what if that's what how we started treating overwhelm, is being like, you know what? First off, not only do I want it, I want more. And it's going to be great.
Well, let me just read this quote from this book that I've read a couple times, and I'm reading it because I put it at the top of someone that I work with, one of their agendas. It is easier to act yourself into a better way of feeling than to feel yourself into a better way of action. And the reason this relates is because, I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, feel like I have imposter syndrome, so people wait for those feelings to subside. And yet it's through action, to your point, I'm going to not only try and reframe it, but even if I can't reframe it, Mike, as easier than that, I'm going to. I like moving through it because I do think there's an element of like, well, what else? What is the other option?
Because you are capable. Because this is a fact. Anybody who's watching this right now, this is true. This is true. You are capable of so much more than you think you are.
100%.
That is without a doubt. That is without, even if you are a low capability individual, you may be a fucking loser watching this. I don't know. But still, you are capable of more than you think you are.
Absolutely.
And so what if you start to just change the script? I like to sub in thinking for feeling, but act like every time those things happen, act like the person who's gonna crush that shit. Like it's just.
And you know what? Not to be frou-frou, but because I feel this way about. I do think artists, creative entrepreneurs, could be some of the best entrepreneurs in the world. And per your point about actors being able to do this, literally do your job.
Yeah, act, pretend.
If you're scared of something, flip the script on it. Rewrite that script. You're now going to embody. And I'm not even trying to be
truthfully under those imaginary
I'm not trying to be bullshit there. I'm serious.
No, fucking do your job and act.
Make a character out of it. Tell yourself, this person is bold, confident, and lives their life differently than you. You're not gonna. If you were to get a script, you're not gonna be like, but this person isn't like me. So I don't feel...
Yeah, unless like you're, I don't know, with these young people, they're all fucking weird with that shit.
Well, okay, well, that's...
You're talking a couple old show queens.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about when to adapt versus when to reset. Because I think if we're going to hold those questions up to people, I think it's worthwhile to give them some context. I want to say that one of the biggest premises of artist strategy has always been... You've heard me say this. I really believe, let me finish the thought, macro to micro. So our whole plan structure is we set 5-year goals. We then have 3-year mile markers, 1-year mile markers, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, down to the 1 week. We sort of break these big goals down into more achievable, tangible, incremental steps. And for me, success, quote unquote, is 100% inevitable if you've set those goals and you work from these adaptable, weekly, modified steps. Meaning, I want to get a rep, whatever the goal is. And you break that down into this week. I'm going to with chalk. I'm going to color my outside of my patio. Just go with me here. That's because that's going to make me feel like I'm going to be like the color red's going to really bolster me up. And then I'm going to look back at the week and say, well, what worked and what didn't work? Oh, that didn't work very well. That was a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah, sure.
So this week, that might be a bad example, but the whole point is you're sort of looking at every week, asking yourself that simple question: what has worked and what hasn't? And that is an example of just in terms of our work about we're constantly adapting.
Well, just to say, another way of putting it is, I love the quote, if it's like success, all success requires is understanding what the price of it is and paying it. That's all success is. And so, the example I use all the time, you're 40 years old and you want to go to Broadway. Yes, you're going to have to pay a lot. That's a high price. But it's possible. You could develop a show yourself. There's somebody, I will not say who, I've heard about this through a grapevine. They're producing something now off Broadway. This is an older woman who's producing something off Broadway.
Okay.
Commercial run.
Okay.
Not through a nonprofit. She's talking to, and she was able to, she was able to find that money, produce this play. She's talking to Broadway investors. I mean, apparently this is not good. That's what I hear from the inside. It's not very good. The show's not good. I don't know. It hasn't opened yet. But regardless, she got some pretty awesome people involved. She was able to raise the money. Yes, she had to work. I'm sure this woman had blood, sweat, fucking tears to make it happen. But she wants to be on Broadway. That's the price she has to fucking pay. And what does this have to do with the adapting? That's what adapting is that every week we need to check in with the guy who, whatever, that was the tax man, I don't know, whatever, the fucking money lender, or, the success lender. And he says, here's what it's going to cost this week. You're going to have to do, this is what you want. You want this goal? Here's what you're going to have to do. And you have to go, well, what do I have to do? You're going to have to do this, and this, and then you have to do it. That's what adapting is. And that price is changing every week. And
I think this question of when to adapt, based off of the questions we were doing as part of this end of year review, essentially is, well, if my goals are still the same, then when I'm simply we should always be adapting is really the point we're making. But you might look at the next year ahead based off of the year you've been. You might see some successes. You might see some failures per what we've been talking about, and go, okay, well, how do I adapt here? So that's when you're adapting.
Let me give one more example because it might be useful.
Okay.
Somebody says, I want to be on a sitcom. Okay. I get this. I want to be on like I want to be on a sitcom or a comedy show.
Okay.
Like, okay, whatever. Okay. So they're trying to casting. Okay, they're doing all the typical bullshit. Casting, right. I'm in UCB, I don't know, whatever the fuck. And it's like, okay. And it's like, well, you need to, as we go and check with your plan each week and we think and we go, well, who's getting these? Like, you need to be a fucking you need to have a million followers on TikTok. Like,
as a comedian.
That's what you need to fucking do. And it's, well, I don't want to do it. Okay, that was the price, and you chose not to pay it.
Exactly.
So now, again, that was the price. You chose not to pay it. That's what that's what, as we every week check in with what we're doing, that's the mindset. Okay, what am I going to have to pay this week?
And I want to say something. You're bringing up a point about why it's hard to adapt. Because people have a preconceived notion as to how something should go. And I think it is hard sometimes for people to accept that there are not only other strategies, but probably better strategies that would help them best serve their goals. And it can be difficult to adapt to the fact that that's no longer going to be the case.
One of the many benefits of capitalism, or benefits or sad things, depending. It doesn't matter what the fuck you think. Doesn't matter. Well, but I think social media is evil, and I don't want to. Doesn't matter what the fuck you think.
Exactly.
This is capitalism. It matters what the fucking market thinks.
So don't expect us to pay your phone bill.
Exactly.
No problem. Go make art.
But
don't expect us to pay you if you aren't willing to meet us where we're at.
Exactly.
The other thing that people struggle with adapting, just want to say, is a lot of times we hear, well, I don't know what to do next. Okay, look. Story of my life. There are many, many things that I don't know what to do. But it's the same idea of like, I don't know how to move across. Who knows how to move across the country? Probably not many people. But you know what? You're going to figure it out because questions lead to answers. And so if you pose that question for yourself, what worked, what did not work, and then go, okay, so I won't do that again. What could I do? Rather than saying, I don't know.
Or set a goal to know.
Set a goal to know. I'm going to have clarity in a month of how to move. And you know what? Oh, that's right. My friend Tito Puente, he moved across the country. Hey, Tito, how are you?
Hey, Tito.
Titi.
Hola. No, but
¿Cómo estás?
But you're right. Like, set the goal to know. Set the goal to make a plan.
Exactly.
You can and that's what we're talking about. A goal is that you need to have something clear. It's a metric that you can measure, right? So if you don't know, set a goal to know.
Now let's talk about when to reset. You'll reset when your goals have shifted. I don't want to be on a sitcom anymore. I want to be a concert pianist, whatever. I have new goals. I'm not in. Mike, you and we've talked about this a little bit. You and I have both sort of moved more so away from film and TV as primary goals. And for a little bit, I was like, oh, I think I really want to begin to dominate in that area. And for many reasons, those goals have shifted back. So you might reset elements of your goal. Another time to reset is when you are very off from, in what we've been talking about today, our plan that we work from. But that could just be, I've done nothing for 7 months. I got the corporate job. I've moved, to your point earlier, I've not moved the needle.
I live in Kentucky. I don't know.
No, but seriously.
I moved, yeah.
I'm so off from my long-term goals. I've got to reset and essentially start anew with what those are.
And when we talk about a reset's also a mental thing. Okay, so let me give you an example. Just because we all know it to an extent. I'm on a diet, okay? And
I'm trying to lose my 2.5 pounds.
I'm trying to lose 2.5 pounds. I'm going to go on a diet, okay? So, I fucked up the diet. Okay, that day. Okay, I went out to lunch and I had a cake.
A whole fucking carrot cake.
I had a whole carrot. I had a whole double chocolate.
Cake. You don't like carrot cake?
I had a whole double chocolate cake.
So good.
What do we do?
Speaking of which,
what do many people do? Is many people go, oh, okay, I'll start tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to going, no, like now. Like after while I'm eating this cake, no, I'm done. Or when I'm done eating the cake, I go, wow, okay, no more. Like a reset in terms of relation to, I would say, go in your career is you're going to fucking fall short. You're going to fall off your plan. You're going to fall off the work you wanted to do. All of a sudden, the audition comes. It's going to be very easy to say tomorrow. It's going to be very easy to say next week. I'm going to start again. I'm going to try, as opposed to saying, no, now. I'm on the path now. I'm driving. Resetting should not be, per your point about resetting versus adapting, this is a life thing. We're in the car driving. A reset is when we pull over and we like sleep somewhere for the night and we're like, okay, before I get back on the road. That's like once. You should be resetting in life like once every fucking, like if we're in a constant of resetting, that's not good. Like you should be resetting once every like, I don't know, year, 6 months. Like if you need to reset, recalibrate. Otherwise, you're on the road.
Even that feels too often, honestly.
Yes, it does. Otherwise, you're on the road driving and you're going over the bumps and you crash into something and you go, okay.
And you're
right back on the fucking road.
Exactly.
Okay, like that's not resetting. That's just driving.
It's adapting. Well, let's talk about why it's hard to reset, though. Because, A, the idea of work, I mean, this comes up a lot. When people go, oh, I'm resetting my goals, it's the same thing. Oh, so to your point about, oh, I'm 40 years old and now I want to really aim for Broadway. It's like the idea of the idea of work. And that's what always gets me. people are so it's the point about why when things shift, it doesn't necessarily feel like overwhelming to me because that's life. This is your point.
Right.
And so, but the idea of work is overwhelming for people. Starting at the beginning, I think, makes people feel like they have failed.
Right.
Like they weren't able to meet the first set of goals, so now I feel like a failure. And I think part of it, and this came up in the collective today, is reframing failures. Because a couple of things, I think this is an interesting idea. Maybe you weren't ready for that series regular in a year. Maybe you weren't ready for that goal, right? There's people who set goals, don't meet them sometimes, and then go, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. And in fact, what did you learn from not meeting that goal so that you can take into the future?
What would you do again? Like, I love this because, in this book, like he talks about this too. It's like, personify that. Yeah, that failure. Give it shape and be like, you know what? Hey, I'm not only am I going to, you have to read this book, man. It's fucking amazing.
What's it called again?
It Can't Hurt Me. It's so good. It's like, because he talks about like, like just like being in SEALs training and like, how the instructors are fucking like, a lot of them are like fucking psychos and like their whole point is to get you to quit. Like that's what they're there to get you to quit and like basically get you to the verge of death so that they can take like the 100 guys who are there and whittle it down to like whatever, like 3 guys who are actually going to do it. So it's like, and it's like every time somebody comes at you, every time a failure comes, it's like, you know what? Smile at it. Be like, yeah, you know what? Not only am I gonna, I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna take you, and I'm gonna, and let me say this about the idea of, why I think there's 2 types of people. There's people who get a lot of energy from starting over again, and there's people who get a lot of exhaustion starting over again. I'm somebody who I get energy. In fact, I reset too much. Not my plan, but emotionally reset. I'm an emotional resetter. I only start over. I'm going to really start it this time. I'm really going to. No, I'm on the path. I'm going. There is no I'm now really starting. I started a while ago. So there's no like I'm starting again. I'm fucking. I need to keep going, keep forging, keep drive. Not only that, I need to push my fucking foot on the gas more. And as, shits, I adjust in the moment. Like that's difficult for me. It's very easy to actually reset, to pull over. Oh, let me recalibrate. Oh yeah, tomorrow I'll be. No.
Well, again, it's easier to act your way into a better way of feeling
right.
than to feel your way into a better place of action. Good. This has been good on
Let me give one quick example about just to give.
And then I have to get my hair cut.
Okay. And we have to do comfort food
I know.
quickly. But let me say this: marketing. I suck at posting consistently on socials.
Same.
And what do I tell myself? I'll start next month. Yeah. Next month will be the month I start. No, now.
And
now.
Fail. You know what I like about what you're saying though? Fail, you guys. Fail quickly. And social media is a great example of this.
Yep.
My TikToks have been shit. But it doesn't matter.
Go.
It's because I'm 98 years old and I got to figure out. I just got to
Get
fail.
after it. And that's
fail,
the thing.
Fail,
but it's so easy for me to go, it's already, it's already December 8th. I'm already.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next
Jan
month.
1.
You know what? Next month, I'm going to start prepping January's marketing calendar now because I'll get now, tomorrow.
Yes.
What is it? Go. That's what it is. Okay,
totally
goals, and now let's get to what the people really want, which is comfort food performances. Happy New Year. Okay, what's your comfort food performance?
Well, I had 2, and I'm going to go with one that I just have to really lift up because by the time this comes out, you'll have a week more to see him. And I was just talking about him.
You don't do comfort food performances.
I know. I was thinking about this.
You don't really know what the comfort food.
I do. It's like, I'm going to sit here and eat. Macaroni and cheese and indulge, whatever. I don't. No. My version of. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about this. You're right. I'm doing my comfort food performances. It's 2023. I identify with comfort food performances being performances I really respect, and that includes Arnie Burton's. Arnie Burton is a New York staple. He was one of the original clowns in 39 Steps. I've had the great privilege of performing with him. He's doing his first musical ever, and he stole the fucking show. He's appearing right now in Dracula, a comedy of terrors by Steve Rosen and Gordon Greenberg. Gordon directed it. And Arnie is just, and we're reading a play with him next week. He's absolutely amazing to me. He is a grounded, still, humble, weird, hilarious actor. I look up to him a great deal, and his performance as like the weird, ugly, horny ass sister in this Dracula. And he also plays Van Helsing, Dr. Van Helsing, this German woman who comes back. He is so fucking funny and knows how to sort of live in the truth of it while also staying present to the audience and giving us full on fucking camp. If you can see him at New World Stages, if you're in New York, or even if you're not, fly in to see. No, it's truly, he's one of the best actors around. I love Arnie.
He's phenomenal. Okay, so when I think about comfort performances, it's not just macaroni and cheese. It's things I come back to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's difficult for a play to be a comfort food performance, but I'll pick a performance in a play as a comfort food because it's something I think about a lot. You know, what sticks out and what do I return to a lot? To me, that's what a comfort food performance is.
Sure.
Whatever.
I accept it.
Yeah, I don't accept yours. But it's funny. I don't remember Billy Piper and Yerma. Was that her name? So Yerma at Park Avenue Armory. I don't, when they did, so Yerma's a play by Lorca, he's Spanish player, and they updated it. It's about a woman, Jesus. It's funny. I don't remember what the fuck. It's like, it's about a woman who's barren, who wants to have a kid desperately, but can't.
Okay.
That's what, and they updated it for like modern day.
Okay.
And I believe her name was Billy Piper. I think they bought it from England. The guy who directed is like that tattooed, he's all fucking tatted. He's like one of the biggest theater directors in England.
Okay.
Jamie something. He did the Cyrano, I think, with, I might be making all this up, but he did.
None of this is resonant. I'm like, who, what? I know Lorca.
He might have directed The Doll's House with Jessica Chastain, too.
I thought that okay.
Yeah, so, but Yerma.
Okay.
So Yerma, she was this production was incredible. It was at the Armory. I don't know. Have you ever seen anything at the Armory?
I haven't actually.
Oh, dude, it's special. It's really special. But they did the whole thing, and it was a modern set, but in a terrarium, which is a land aquarium, basically.
Yeah.
And her performance, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen on the stage. I think about it all the time. So she plays like a woman having a mental breakdown, basically, because she can't have kids, and it was exceptional.
And the actor's name is Yerma?
I think that was the name of the play.
Oh.
Billy Piper, I believe was the name of the woman.
That's a good name.
Billy Piper.
Well, Billy and Arnie, we love your work.
Yeah.
We love your work. Let's do a show together.
Right.
Happy New Year, folks. By the time you'll be hearing this, you'll be hopefully going into the new year with hopefully not a new set of goals. And if you do, that's okay as well. But thank you for listening to Creative Risk, where we talk about art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between.